Oh, wow. Wow, this is beautiful. This is beautiful setting, it really is. Red is transposed into one of those two cells. Now, imagine just for a second, therefore, that this was yellow. If this is yellow, I need to put blue in here to make the maths work, and that will clash with that. So yellow is not in the circle, so this is all fixed.
So these are 2, 3, 5. I love it. I love it. I love it. So these are 2, 3, 5. So this can't be a 10 line, because if this was a 10 line, this digit and that digit would be the same. Oh. I'm jealous that isn't in one of my puzzles. The joke is that these are a 2, 3, 5 triple, but 2, 3, and 5 also add to 10. So therefore, if I try and make this a 10 line, this digit is that digit, and that doesn't work.
What a puzzle this is. I love it. It's just gorgeous, isn't it? It's just gorgeous. Niverio has created the perfect example of this puzzle. I'm so impressed when something is as literally beautiful as that. That is such fun to do.
Oh, I see. I see what you've done. I see what you've done. So now... anyway, so now we've got 9 here, so this has got to be 11, so that's got to be 4. So hopefully you're seeing what's happening there.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Niverio interview. Hello Niverio, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you and everyone in the chat doing?
I'm doing well. I don't think I can speak for everyone in the chat, but I'm sure they will let you know if they're doing well. And welcome everyone. I see some lovely familiar names, and I was gonna say faces, but I guess not really faces, more like little icon things. Don't forget to like the stream if you're enjoying it. If you like that intro, like the stream. And yeah, let's just roll right into it. So
Yeah, we have to give them some time because it's a shock. I revealed my face for the first time, obviously, like after
right, of course,
2 years of streaming. So we need to give them like a minute to digest what they are seeing, obviously.
Yeah, we'll give you a minute to digest Niverio's face.
And the room, of course, I changed all the setting, etc. Obviously.
Right, of course.
But yeah.
All right. I was gonna ask where do you live, but clearly you live in this room. We all know that.
Yeah. I don't like. I just live here 24/7. I don't ever leave.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm in Germany. Normally, I'm of Turkish origin, but for studying, I came over to Germany. And right now, here I'm studying and doing an internship at the moment.
Nice. What is your internship in?
My internship is normally my major is electrical engineering. Although what I'm doing right now in the internship is more computer science related, I'm doing more data science related projects on there, and yeah, I'm really enjoying. Like I like computer science a little bit better than electrical engineering these days.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. I really enjoy it.
Do you have any hobbies or interests outside of puzzling?
Yeah, I do play electric guitar. I have played for 10 years now, I believe. Like, after a while, you lose count. Like, I was always thinking to myself when people are talking about, like, marriages, like, and people joke about, oh, after a while it gets lost, and I was like, how do you forget those things? And then it happened to me for guitar, so I was like, wait, is it 9 or 10 or 8? Like, I don't count it anymore, but yeah, like, guitar playing is my biggest hobby. Outside of that, I have thousands of hours in video games. Some of them I have way too many hours, like Civilization 5, League of Legends, Pen of Exile come to mind as top 3. Outside of that, I used to read a lot when I was back in Turkey, when I had easy access to books. I really liked reading about crime, fantasy, and fiction overall.
Cool.
It didn't go too well in Germany because finding either Turkish or English books in Germany is very expensive. So yeah, that has taken a downfall in the recent years, but like I still read whenever I can.
Do you like only prefer like physical books? Like you couldn't do like a Kindle or something? Because you could definitely find English books on that.
Yeah. I just love, like, what I usually do when I read books is, like, especially if it's a book that really intrigues me, what usually happens is, like, I start at 4 p.m. in the evening or something like that. And if the book really intrigues me, I just don't stop until I finish. And I really enjoy the feeling of, like, just flipping through the pages throughout the night, and it ends at like 5 a.m. in the morning. And you definitely cannot do like a 9 hour reading on a Kindle or something like that, because your eyes will probably not allow that. Um, I also like to roll around the bed. Like, you first play the book on the pillow, and then you take it back, you roll over yourself, you read it like this, and then you roll over again. I like doing that.
Yeah, yeah. There is something satisfying about like flipping the page
Yeah.
physically, for sure.
Agreed.
Okay, let's ask like a book-related question, I guess. If you could live in any fictional world, where would you choose and why?
If I could live in any fictional world, ooh, that's a hard one, actually. Like, it really depends on what. Like, there are so many worlds that are absolute terrible places to live in. Like, pretty
Yeah,
much most of them.
definitely.
But the only difference is, in some of those worlds, if you're a high-ranked member of that society, you can live like an absolute god. So, like, what comes to mind? I do not know the English name of this series, but there is a very, very famous series. Like, not too famous. It's not among the most well-known, but it's a futuristic dystopia, so to say, where the cities have been mobilized, and all of the cities have turned into this layers of um, big cosmopolitan entities, and like the cities devour each other, rolling through on tanks. Like, I don't know the English name. Like, if I were to do a chicken translate, it would be like walking cities. I have to look at the English name. Let me just quickly translate it. It is
Yeah,
by Philip Reeve. Mortal Engines is the series name.
Mortal Engines.
Uh,
I think
yeah,
I've
and
seen the book. I think my mother read that at some point, but I haven't read it myself.
yeah, for example, in that, like, there are the lower ranked citizens which are working at the very below that
Right.
operate the machine, and there are people that are living on the higher end which just reap the benefits. So, for example, in such world, if you are on one of the higher class people, you are basically in heaven. So,
So you'd imagine yourself being in the higher class, of course.
I would hope so. Like, in those words, life is never fair. So, like, usually you cannot go, "Oh, I'm a very smart person. Choose me, choose me." It doesn't work that way.
Right.
So it would be like based on luck.
Imagine
Oh, thank you, Joey.
yeah, imagine choosing to live in a fictional world and then ending up like as a coal miner or something. That would suck.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have an unusual skill or talent?
I would say no, in the sense that, like, I have always had a very good inkling towards puzzling, but since everyone in this puzzling community is already geared towards that, I wouldn't count that. What I do have, though, is, like, I have a very interesting memory, in the sense that, like, my memory is not perfect. It is far from perfect. But when it comes to specific aspects of my life, my memory is very extremely good. Like,
Mhm.
even today, like, I had just done, for example, a ranking of all of my puzzles a month before on my channel, and I still remember to this day every single break-in for all of my puzzles, for example. Like,
Yeah.
I don't forget those. But if you ask me what I ate 2 days ago, I will not remember that. So, like, that is, like, not something I would say a skill or talent, but it is unusual. That might fit the question.
Just to interrupt for 1 second, I forgot to enable the Patreon supporter layout. So thank you to all the people on this screen for supporting me. If you want your name on this screen, all you need to do is sign up on Patreon or support me on Ko-Fi. Anyways, and I won't, or I'll try not to forget to put your name on the screen. How do you balance puzzling with all these other things in your life, like the internship and the streaming of puzzles is honestly crazy for me in terms of like how on earth do you and Zeta manage to do multiple streams per week with everything else going on in life?
Yeah, it is hard. Like, why I can mainly do it is because of, like, me realizing things overall about, like, when I started the internship, I realized, okay, I'm going to be working full time overall, and like when I come back home from those working days, I'm going to be relatively tired. And if I just lay down, I know, because I have been this way for the last 20 years, it never changed, that I will not do anything in that day. And like I know that if I don't do anything, I will be getting behind on all the puzzles, because like what I would do probably is I might test a puzzle or two if it is someone that I really like from, but I will
Yeah.
not do any more than that. So I just said to myself, okay, I'm going to put a schedule in when I start the internship, and I'm going to stick by it. And I try to. Sometimes either my internet dies or I have to have some in real life plans that interfere with that. But I still always try to do like 2 streams at the weekdays, Monday and Thursday, whenever I can. And the times are always also fixed. So that gives me an incentive to, okay, like I know that throughout that day when I come back home from work at like 6, I have 90 minutes to do whatever I need to do, because after that the day will be over anyway. And that actually keeps me motivated to have more energy somehow. Like it doesn't make too much sense, but yeah, it works for me. When I was not doing the internship, when I was streaming before the internship times as well, I have been streaming for a long time. I was able to do some crazy streams. Like I streamed Clover's Caterpillar in a whole stream. Like I streamed for 9 hours on the weekend.
Right.
I cannot do it all on a weekend these days because the weekday is draining a lot of the energy. So I usually take the weekend off for myself. But yeah, the internship is over next month, so maybe I will bring some of those back. Who knows? But yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to balance them out, and there's always some things that I either feel either too tired to actually stream, or sometimes real life comes in the way. I need to push them out. But yeah, I think I'm doing a relatively okay job. Like 80% of the time, the stream is going to be there.
Right. Well, that's very impressive for you to say, "Oh, I'm gonna be way too tired and not want to do anything if I don't push myself to do something. So I'm gonna do something every single week at these times. Like just commit to it instead." That's pretty impressive. Glum Hippo had asked a very flattering question. When did you start being such a pleasant person? Pretty much at birth?
Actually, I don't know. In the sense that like I have always been like, even when I was a younger kid, like I was not really an extrovert person ever. Like I have always been an introvert, and my friend groups have always been relatively small. Although I hit the jackpot at high school, really. Like in high school I was able to find a group of around like 10 friends overall, and we used to play lots of D&D together, and we also used to go to school together as well, because we were the group that needed to cross every day from Asia to Europe by ferry
Oh.
to go to school, and that created an environment. And it turned out that all of us actually enjoy gaming, and we were like, yeah, like after the school is done, then we are coming back. Maybe after the ferry, we can just stay where the ferry stops. We can have a chat for like 2 or 3 hours and then go home. Like it started that way, and then we started gaming like that, and I had lots of good friends among them. But like back to the question, overall, like I actually had not trouble speaking, so to say, but I didn't have a good time speaking sometimes. Like I didn't say the right things most of the time in real life. But then the pandemic happened, and like if people know D&D a little bit, this is going to make sense to them. Is when the pandemic happened, I had lots of communities in online. Like I spent lots of time on Twitch, and I went into some communities. This was before CTC. This is like 2019 and 2020 starts, and I didn't join CTC actively until 2021. And what I realized is that when pandemic happened and all of the social interaction went online, I, instead of starting using charisma as the social interaction stat, I started to use intelligence, because when you are typing, you can actually think before you type. You can read the message before then, and then it's really helpful because like I would say my charisma is not that high overall. It got better obviously when I started streaming and I got more accustomed to that. But before then, like I would say, like typing a lot, typing for in many different communities, learning how to be accepted in different groups of people was a really helpful experience for that. And I think that was the groundstone which I also applied to CTC, and thankfully made a lot of friends of. And these days, CTC is like the biggest community I've been in, because most of the other communities have disappeared.
Right. I, I love those. Yeah, the two quotes. Tristan saying that your statement of your charisma is not very high is false. I would
Yeah,
tend to agree with that. At least from
you guys should have met me in 2017, and then
Right.
your opinion would probably be different.
And I also love the quote of I started using intelligence. What's the key to your secret, your success? I started using intelligence.
Exactly, that's how it works. Yeah, this is what this is what happens when you play D&D for half of your life. Like you
Right.
really start to see how you can implement D&D jokes into real life, because those are applicable. Like there's a reason why role playing is a big part of many societies these days, because it is really realistic and it is reflective too.
Yeah, D&D is awesome. If you guys don't know it, try it out.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
Stark, and I guess Kodak had asked if you could demonstrate how to make pesto and sauerkraut. So,
Well, the short answer is no, I cannot, because I didn't prepare for it. Although I can give this, overall, I can say this, like right now I live with my brother here, and we have split the main big two cores of, like the big two chores of shopping and cooking is between ourselves. And I am the cook and he goes shopping.
yeah.
So I do cook pretty much every week, every 2 days, every 3 days sometimes, depending on if we are feeling lazy or not. I do not cook a big variety of things, but I can definitely get by. So, but I do not make my own sauces at home. So, like, you are out of luck if you want me to make pesto.
Are you more of an outside person or inside person?
Inside, absolutely.
Right.
Like, some people might disagree, but inside all the way.
Definitely. I was trying to form this question and I never wrote it down earlier today. Something like, if you were a fruit, which fruit would you be in terms of height?
In terms of height? Wait, what? This
Like
is
if
such
an
a weird
apple
question.
is 5 feet, which fruit are you?
Okay, good that you gave a scale. In real life, I think I had this conversation with my girlfriend before, so I know my American height is 5.8. So if an apple is 5, a pear maybe?
Interesting.
I didn't, like, that is like the first thing that comes to mind. It is just a little bit taller than an apple. Like,
Interesting. Yeah, so there's 2 points to this. There's two. I'm gonna defend my question, okay? Because you guys are roasting me in chat. I'm gonna defend my question. There's two parts that I wanted this question to illustrate. One, there's no relative scale because you only gave 1 point, and then two, I just wanted to see how you interpret the question because it's a very stupid question. Anyways,
I'm always down for stupid questions. Like when I'm always very comfortable when I'm talking about something that is very nonsensical. That's also that has always been with the same with my friend group as well. That is, like, I was usually known as one of the quieter people, and the main reason for that is I really hate talking about stuff that I do not know about. So
right.
I either talk when I'm actually knowledgeable about something, like when it comes to puzzling, I'm pretty knowledgeable, so I talk all the time in CTC and such, or when, like, the topic is just like it's just empty talk, and then it doesn't matter what you say anyway. So
Right.
like that is the main reason I can talk very much in these communities. But if you were to meet me in real life, like Kodek did, for example, or talk at, like, I do not speak too much on subjects that I like. I do not want to make things up and mislead people whenever I can. So I'm more of a listener in those things.
It's interesting
What's
that
your
you say
favorite?
you're into D&D because I feel like lots of D&D people like to talk about things that other people don't know
Oh yeah,
everything
when you're
about.
role playing, that's something else. If you pretend that you know
Oh
something
yeah.
and you're trying to manipulate the NPCs, then of course, then I will talk all day long. That is true.
Jovi has an interesting question. Niverio, on a scale from 1 to 10, what's your favorite shape in the English alphabet? Answers from 1 to 10 only, please.
Okay, my real name starts with an O. O is close to shape to 0, and on the scale you have provided, the only thing that has a 0 is 10, so I'm definitely a 10 out of 10, Joey.
Excellent answer. Okay. That was a detailed answer for the amount of time that you had.
That's again another advantage of playing D&D. You have to be good at spontaneously coming up with answers like that.
Niverio has answered this question before. I was thinking about saying that.
Right. I didn't think
does
of
have
that.
2 0 shapes in it.
See, that's wisdom. That's wisdom. That is like common sense and being practical. I don't have too much wisdom. You have to plan things beforehand.
All right. Let's get into some puzzle related questions. Although that might have been a puzzle related question as well. What was the first puzzle that you ever set, and what inspired that puzzle?
Well, the first puzzle I have set is my second LMD puzzle out there, and the only reason it is second is I didn't know LMD existed at the time. So when I realized LMD existed, I published both of my puzzles at the same time, and that was a puzzle called "Go the Right Way." And the title is like that because, like, when the grid comes up, we are going to see it's an antinite thermo, and basically all of the thermometers on the left are X's, and the thermometers on the right look like pointing arrows. And even the given digits form a pointing right arrow, which I found pretty clever at the time for my first puzzle. So what inspired it is basically CTC inspired it, in the sense that I should probably answer this at the start, because people are going to be asking about, like, when did you start watching CTC and such as well. So I can just hit both birds with one answer. So it's normally most people's answer when I listen to these interviews is like, oh, the Miracle Sudoku video. And mine is not like that, actually. Because when the pandemic first started, at the very start of 2020, and I talked about, like, joining these Twitch communities. And so after, like, being in the communities for a while, watching other people, and I thought to myself, okay, I can actually stream too. And when I stream, like, I have some games that I can really stream, I'm pretty proficient at. And there's also the puzzles that I wanted to do. Like, streaming puzzles was the first thing that came to my mind. Like, back then, like, to my knowledge, like, the Sudoku channels didn't exist too much. So, and among those communities, like, those are for most of the time, social deduction communities. People were playing games like Town of Salem, Among Us, when it first got published, that those communities were playing Among Us nonstop, myself included. I have like 700 hours in Among Us as well. But basically, like, when I started streaming myself, I thought to myself, like, I want to do something different. And I said, okay, these communities are actually pretty intellectual communities compared to some other hobbies, because social deduction still requires thinking at the very least. And I was going to, I think, maybe. I don't know. I have not been into many other communities before. That is my hope, at least. So I started doing streams, and I was, like, searching for puzzles. So first I started doing, like, New York Times dailies at the start of every stream for half an hour. I would solve the easy, medium, hard expert puzzles there, and then move on to some games or something. And then, like, one day I was like, okay, I'm tired of, like, solving these classics that take me 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. So I went to YouTube, and I basically wrote high quality Sudoku. I YouTube something like that. I don't remember the exact prompt, but I basically Googled Sudoku on YouTube.
Right.
And then, like, I looked at some of the first things that came up, and most of the videos I saw was, like, classics. And then I do not know which video that was. Like, it's not a famous video, but I was scrolling down, and I saw a Sudoku that I didn't really know about. Back then, I didn't know variant Sudoku that well. And I was like, wait, this is a Sudoku grid that I'm seeing, but there aren't many numbers. There's some shapes in there. I think it was a term of Sudoku. And I was intrigued by it. I clicked on it. I watched the video. I read the rules, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's actually pretty cool. And then what I started to do was, when I was doing puzzle streams, like, I subscribed to CTC, and I just started doing puzzles from the videos they made, because I didn't know their catalog, so to say. So I was just getting the puzzles from their links under the video when I was doing. So that's how I started following CTC. After like 2 to 3 months, I think like when I first did this, it was January 2021. Then I joined the CTC Discord as well, very, very early on. Like I joined, but I didn't do anything there. The first time that I was really active in the CTC Discord was around April, where I started. I discovered voice chat 1 basically at April. And I saw I was an outsider, and I saw all of these people that were like very big household names at that point, like Jovi, Clover. At that time, were of course the most famous people out there. Shy, like when you see puzzles from them on CTC videos, you're like, oh my god, these people are so clever. And then they are like talking among themselves in voice chat 1, like talking random stuff that they usually do. And I was like, if I just enter there, like just say something random just to join the conversation, like who am I? Like who am I compared to these people, right? But after a while I did. Like I started very small. There was one day where I saw like 15 people in the VC, and I was like, if I join here, oh yeah, like I can blend in here. Like nobody's going to realize me existing there. So I started like watching some like Codec was testing some puzzles out there. So I started joining the VC one day. Then in voice chat when I asked some questions, like people were very, very kind. And then after a while, like I saw that F puzzle software existed. And I was like, one day, I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a try myself. And yeah, Antonite was a constraint that was really hot that early on. For me anyway, because I didn't know back then that Antonite is a curse that people should not touch. But it is fun to explore at the start for ideas, because like the main idea for my first ever puzzle, like if you show the grid at the very start, the basic idea is, which is a very common idea these days, everybody spots these things instantly these days, that the 2 X's on the first box, like the top left X, the 4 cell thermals, basically build an 8 cell unique region. Right. And when you realize the tips have to be very high on both of those because they're an 8 cell region, that affects the right side 7 cell thermal out there, and that's basically the break-in. Which I found pretty cool at the time. Of course, today it's very well known. And like that is how I slowly started setting these things up. And like I set this puzzle, and like I was like, okay, where did I post this? Oh, okay, I posted it to Sudoku testing, and then I was like, and then I got a ping on voice chat 1, and Joe Warren pinged me saying, oh, I see that you have a new puzzle here. Do you want, like, I want to solve it. Do you want to watch? And I'm like, I will be honored to. Like I said, yeah, sure. And then I joined, and he solved it. And yeah, it was great. And after that, I started being more confident. I started setting more. I started solving more myself, because I remember how it felt for me at the start as a new setter, that someone well known in the community tackles your puzzles. Feels amazing. So that's why I try to do myself in Discord time to time too. Although I cannot do it too much in the last months because I stream and work full time, so I do not have too much time for it. But whenever I can, I also started jumping to Discord, test solving some puzzles from people I didn't even know too much about, etc. And yeah, we came to here. I started setting more, solving more. I gained experience. The more experience I gained, the more ideas I had, and here we are. So I think that is the longest answer anyone has given, I guess, to that question. I just like talking.
I don't think that's the longest answer, but you tried.
I should have tracked it more. I actually report a lot. Like, oh my god, yeah. We have enough time for football formations, guys. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll have time for football formations. That is a pretty unique story, though, indeed. So how did you didn't really go into very much, like, how did you go about setting that, I almost said football formations, this arrow puzzle? Were you doing it like as if you would set a puzzle now, or was it more, was it a different process?
Like, I was a lot more reliant on the solver back then, because I was like first getting to know the functionalities of a solver, and this was the basic solver. Like the ranked solver didn't exist back then when I first started, or even if it was, I didn't know about it. And I was like, okay, like I have this thing here. Like when I place it, oh, it will, like I can see what things can do. But then I realized I can check what it does extra with the solver, and it was mind blowing at the time. Like I don't recommend anyone do that these days, but like at the time it was an amazing experience for me. So I just played around with it and saw what I could and what I could not do with the solver, which was really fun.
Yeah, I bet I bet if we went back and like watched ourselves set for the first time, we would be a little bit more lenient to ourselves in terms of using the solver because probably weren't as good at solving then, so it maybe wasn't as obvious as it is now what things will do, especially with anti-knight or anything like that.
Exactly. But at least one thing I'm happy about this first puzzle as well is I have never used the solver to set a break, is what I really like. Like, I always started setting when I actually had at least a vague idea of what I wanted to do, and then I started first implying the first thing in the grid myself, and then employ the solver. How can someone set an Excel data? Like, how does that even work?
Yeah, there are quite a few that set in Excel, which, yeah, I'm glad I'm not one of those people. That sounds very tedious. Anyways,
yeah.
So you gave some insight into how you got involved in the community. How long did it take you to get your first CTC feature?
I think it was around a month, actually. Like, not a month or 1.5 months. I don't remember exactly when. But it was my fourth puzzle, which was Primes Are Too Cool to Be Constrained. It is my fourth puzzle, but my third on LMD, because I set a monthly prompt puzzle in the meantime, which had featured a red line German whisper with a guitar shape, which is a lovely image, but the puzzle solve itself wasn't too good. But yeah, my first feature was Primes Are Too Cool to Be Constrained. This puzzle on the screen right here. And yes, for people who are going to be checking, yes, I did set a puzzle with Fortress. So yeah, this was just a cool idea that I had, and this was basically, people are setting lots of parity puzzles with even and odd, and like even is 4 digits, odd are 5 digits. What else can be distributed to 4 and 5? Oh, there are between 1 and 9 4 prime numbers, 2, 3, 5, 7. And I can do something with that, and I went and said it.
Cool. Is
I
Fortress
still have the ideas in this one. Yeah.
Is Fortress on the list of things that you
Birds,
don't like?
Yeah.
It's on the list.
I have to point this out. I do not mind Fortress when it is not used quite often in the puzzle. Like, I don't mind the Fortress being as a local clue where, it just acts like a very small term and you can make deductions based on that. What I really, really don't like is when you have like 3 or 4 Fortress clues that force something together, because I'm very, very bad at spotting such things. And they also look terrible. Like, in F puzzles, at least. It looks better in CTC, but in F puzzles, they look absolutely terrible.
So what you're saying is that you're okay with Fortress in this puzzle that you set, but all the other ones are terrible.
Yeah. No. Fortress is still bad. Again, I haven't set a Fortress puzzle since this one ever, and it has been like 50 puzzles, so I mean, maybe one day what I will do is I'm going to set a Liar or Rogan puzzle, and I'm just going to use the constraints that I hate. Like, maybe. Just for the fans.
I guess I would say for Fortress is there's nothing secret or interesting that you're really going to find with Fortress. It's just going to be boring, honestly. So if you're looking for something interesting, don't look at that. I don't think.
Yeah.
Let's go to a viewer question. Luda3 had asked, which puzzle are you most proud of?
Oh boy.
Now we finally get to talk about football formations.
No, like if I were to say football formations here, that would be like the biggest disgrace I've ever committed in my life, probably. So which puzzle am I the most proud of? Like, this is a very specifically worded question, because the answer for most proud, best, and favorite are, I think, all 3 different. For me, but most proud is, I don't think it will ever really change. It is dynamic duos. Anyone who has spoken with me for like a week knows this, probably. I like to bring it up quite a bit. Like, not too often, but when people ask for like puzzles like this, I just bring it up because it is a very old puzzle that I have set very, very early on. This is my 7th puzzle overall on LMD. It has been like in just the 4th month of me starting setting, and this was just me thinking to myself and coming up with a very flicker of idea and then turning it into a puzzle, which usually how I set puzzles. Is I have a very small idea which might be intriguing for some people, for some not. And for this puzzle, like the starting idea is like if you haven't solved it, it's a very minor spoiler, but you have to realize it yourself anyway. Is I realize that every single thermometer is a between line in the end. That is the like I don't even remember when I thought of this, but I was talking to Gurkles at the time. Like Gurkles was one of my earliest friends in CTC, and we were talking about like line constraints overall. And I was like, I just realized that at some point, and I'm like, maybe I can turn this into a puzzle. And it took me around like 2 to 3 days of thinking like how I can utilize the rule set with that. Because back then, like if you guys look at the constraints using the puzzle, there's some stuff like Kreska line. Nobody knows what the Kreska line is because it doesn't exist real these days. Like there's no region sum line, there's no entropic line. The main reason they don't exist is because they didn't exist at the time of this puzzle setting. If region sum lines existed today, and I was setting dynamic duos today, I would definitely use region sum lines in this. But yeah, basically what I did was I had this idea, and then I sat down, and I just started, okay, when I pair these constraints up, I realized that these 8 constraints are actually forced. Like when you pair them up, they are actually all forced from the start, even if you don't have a grid at the same time. If you don't have a grid at hand, you could still pair them up because of the numerical restrictions
pre-work on the idea.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that's what when I first set this puzzle and people are trying to solve it, I always said, like this puzzle is only 5 because you have to think for an hour before you start it. I always said it that way. Because really, like if you just look at the grids, you'll see where the palindromes are, and that's basically everything you get. You don't get anything else until you really start thinking about the pairings or too much. But yeah, the main reason this puzzle is one of my most proudest creations is the feedback it received on LMD as well. Like I really like the idea, and I for what I know, I think this is still the largest ambiguity puzzle out there. Like I think this is the only puzzle out there that has 8 different constraints at the same time that you need to think about. And this puzzle has some of my favorite comments of all time. Like Polar's comment from 12th of November is like Polar was an absolute solver legend. I didn't know her quite well at the time, but when I read that comment, I was like so happy for a whole month when she said like it was an absolutely phenomenal puzzle. Because I knew Polar as the person who solved every single 5-star difficulty puzzle on MD and very rarely comments. Like Mark Mies, for example, as well, a very similar person to that reputation on LMD. And when all of the people started writing such comments, and this was also my first 100% on LMD, I was really, really proud of it. And it still stands to this day. It has amazing statistics on LMD. Like this puzzle is one of the 7 puzzles on LMD that has the highest favorite count. And just by only 34 solves, it's an incredible achievement. I'm really, really proud of this one. This is the only puzzle also of mine that after a whole year, I just revamped the puzzle page. Because I was like, this puzzle deserves to have a good presentation. Because at the start, I didn't have good HTML knowledge. So like the lines were yellow, I didn't have CTC or Pampa links or something like that. And yeah, I just revamped the entire puzzle page. So this puzzle, based on the satisfaction it gave me and how I like it, is my most proud creation. I wouldn't say it's my best. Like if that asks, I can go deeper into why. But yeah, for most proud, this is definitely Dynamic Duos. I set 2 puzzles after that one, directly sequel to Dynamic series. Like I have Dynamic Duos, Dynamic Duos, and Dynamic Construction. And the Dynamic Duos success was also what led to me setting 10 plus ambiguity puzzles throughout my career, basically.
Right. And I don't know if this is true, but I guess it's pretty different from your other stuff before then, right? It was like a pretty big leap from sort of just normal constraints, maybe a little bit of prime stuff, and then all of a sudden into, well, there are these lines and you have to figure out a bunch of stuff before you even start the puzzle, which is completely different from the rest of your style. So I guess it kind of almost defined the rest of your career in terms of style.
Yeah. Like I would agree on that in the sense that like at the time of me setting that puzzle, there wasn't too much ambiguity puzzles out there. Like Zetamat had a couple. I don't even remember who else had ambiguity puzzles really on LMD. There might be some more on CTC overall. But like at the time when I realized you can actually draw conclusions even though you don't know anything about the grid itself, it was very exciting. Now these days ambiguity is a lot more common, which I'm really happy about, because I do think ambiguity is something that it has really high potential. You can combine pretty much any two things and just examine their interactions, their commonalities, and you can create something exciting out of it, I think. So yeah, I'm glad that there are more ambiguous puzzles these days to choose from. Zeno. It's not football formations. It's not my least favorite puzzle is not football formations.
Oh. What is the least favorite puzzle then?
It is the SL miracle.
It's
not a bad puzzle. It is my hardest puzzle by far. And the main reason is that is like the most unlike Niverio puzzle out there. And that the main reason for that is it's a challenge puzzle. I said it for originally Kolot's out no insight through chaos construction. And then I abandoned the idea of making a chaos construction and did it on a normal Sudoku grid. And yeah, this puzzle is pretty much the only puzzle in my entire catalog that there is actively a bifurcation step inside it. And I didn't mind it at the time because this was just a challenge puzzle, and like I didn't care that it solved nicely. I just was trying to make sure that it turned out unique. And it did in the end because I cheated by adding some diagonal clues. And it did, and there are like 28 people who suffered through it. So like, I don't know why they did it. I don't know why it's called a 99% rating either.
I did it because you asked me to do it.
Wait, did I? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh yeah, because I remember like you were also really active in the challenge at the time. Like you were also trying to find very unique setups for it. I remember I was talking to you a lot during this period. So yeah, sorry for that in advance.
No worries. I think we were all interested in that.
Yeah, this is the only puzzle of mine that I didn't have fun in mind while setting it, and it shows.
Right, yeah. There isn't, as you said, it isn't like the worst puzzle, but yeah, it's not you, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not me. It's not me, exactly. Like, it is not also too much bifurcation. Like, there's exactly one step that you need to look ahead quite a bit to eliminate something. The rest is still manageable, but again, like that doesn't justify it's like the break-in is still nice. I like the break-in of it quite a bit, but the rest just is suffering. Like if I were to solve that puzzle from someone else, I would definitely not rate it 5 out of 5 on LMD for sure.
Do you find more enjoyment in your solving or your setting?
Very hard question. I thought about this actually because I saw this question being asked a lot. And my answer is setting has higher peaks for me in the sense that like setting has that unique excitement that when you are creating the puzzle, you are filled with anticipation of, oh my god, 10 people realize this, especially when you have lots of friends and you know what they like to solve. And you set a puzzle, and then you come across some deductions that you are like, oh my god, this is so good. Like people are going to love this. Like those moments, I don't think any solving moment can actually replicate, because that is a unique feeling to creating something, and the anticipation that comes along with it that just doesn't exist in solving. But I would say solving overall is more pleasant in its own regard because setting also has a downside that when you have those high anticipation moments, those also come with a price because after a while, when you make those deductions, you also have to respect those deductions you put in earlier. And then at the ending, you might be using lots of time, like putting in clues, trying things out, scrapping the idea because you don't like how it went through. And that consumes time, which is still pleasant most of the time for me, but it's still not fun because what you are trying to do is come up with something good. But in many cases, when you are setting an end solve, it usually comes down to like finding decent enough things at the end. Instead of like when at the opening you can create amazing things. Like I don't think I have any puzzle that has a revolutionary idea in the last 20 cells or something. And I don't remember any puzzle that I solved that has something similar either, because that is just the nature of the grid. The more numbers there is, the more it is naturally constrained and you have less freedom of doing things. But overall, I enjoy both quite a lot. Setting again has higher peaks, and solving is more consistent. Like 99% of the puzzles I solve, I enjoy pretty much every minute of it. If I don't, I usually give the setter feedback on what I didn't enjoy. And there are a few select puzzles in my blacklist that I absolutely hated. But yeah, we don't talk about those.
Right. Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put the dynamic between solving and setting. Yeah, I think there is definitely like a lot less or a lot more hype and then all of a sudden crashing failure when you're setting, because it's like, oh no, the thing that I really liked is gone forever. It's broken, or something like that. Or you have to get rid of a step, or at the end the step doesn't even matter. Yeah,
I had a moment like that in Dynamic Dots. Like that is the one that I remember so vividly, because like in Dynamic Dots, which is the sequel to Duos, which is the dot version where I had lots of gray dots in the grid. I had on like I created the break on the left side, and like I had the grid such that I had the first 3 columns pretty much filled or pencil marked, and I had the entire right side empty. And then I started playing around with ideas, and then I came across something. It was amazing, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is if this works, this is going to be like better than Duos."
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked so enticingly out of there, and then I realized what I created with that pattern creates a deadly pattern. Because what happens with the dots is so unique, and the reasons why the other ways do not work is so much fun to discover. But then what happens in the end is that those dots loop around itself to create either a complete white dot sequence or an x dot x dot sequence, and then that is all in the same 2 box, and it creates a dead rectangle. And if you try to fix it in any way, the only way to do that is by either a given or another dot, and everything that I put alongside it completely bypass the original logic that I put in there. And like I spent like 4 hours frantically trying to save it, and it didn't work. It was really depressing.
It was such a unique deduction that it wasn't unique as a puzzle.
Yeah. You could have afforded to. I don't think for the school would work, Zeta, to be honest.
Yeah. So clearly you would say that there's inherent enjoyment in setting, like there's value in just setting for the setting purpose.
Yeah, I would say so. Like I really like setting overall more exciting, but it's also more rare. Like it doesn't happen to me like, oh, I like setting quite a lot. I'm going to go home today, I'm going to set something. It doesn't work that way. I need to first have a spark that ignites the trigger. After that first ignite happens, then the rest comes along quite nicely for me. But it doesn't happen all the time. Like sometimes I just need to wait for it. Oh, also, Micro, about dynamic cells van. The Gurkhas and Friends entry of mine is an ambiguity puzzle, and it is basically as closest to that we are going to get as to dynamic cells, because it works on cell borders, which is going to be unique. I think we made a stupid assumption that we need to reset some parts of it, which I'm really sad about, but yeah, we have time. We have time to fix it.
I like the way that you describe the spark thing and how setting isn't enjoyable unless you have an idea, because a lot of the times there's sort of like a setter fix, like you just want to set a puzzle, but then there's no idea, so you need that fix of the enjoyment of setting, but there's nothing coming to you.
Yeah. like that happened quite recently too. Like not quite recently, but it happened when I first applied this year to take part in the Victel. And Victel is, for the people who do not know, it is the secret center of LMD basically, and all of the old school Germans take part in it. Like not all of them, but whomever they can. And this year we had 10 people, and like normally in Secret Santa you get you get a person, and that person has some preferences, right? And it is a sin in Victor to set a Sudoku, really. So you have to, like, you have the puzzles overall. And what my Santi has said is, I don't care, do whatever you want.
No.
And then I was like, okay, there's like 1,000 pencil puzzle genres out there. I haven't set with pretty much any of them except 2 at that time. And and I was like, it took me like 2.5 weeks to actually come up with an idea. And I didn't come up with an idea initially. What I came up with is I came up with the lore of the puzzle first, because those puzzles usually have a story related to them. So I initially wrote a lore and then wrote rules based on the lore. And that's how I like circumvented my way out of that.
Right.
Then it turned out to be a very lovely puzzle. But yeah, it is going to be released during 2023 at some point in the future.
Yeah, I guess with the Secret Santa, you're looking for them to sort of give you a prompt for the lore, but you just had to make your own prompt.
Some guidance, like at least something. Like it doesn't have to be too specific, just something to get me started, you know?
At least you didn't say like, don't give me a bad puzzle or something like that. That would be even worse.
Yeah. At least they had some decency about it.
Or it doesn't matter what you give me, it'll suck or something like that.
Yeah, true. The good thing is that they don't know who is the gifting them. Right. Like if they knew it was me, who are you? We don't know me anyway, so do whatever you want, but that would be even worse. I would like worst puzzle ever, please. I mean, you would give it Sudoku, Zeta. You would give it Sudoku. Like that is their idea of worst puzzle, basically.
Okay, let's go to, because everyone's dying to know, aside from football formations, what would you say is your best work? I mean, obviously football formations is the top one, but aside from that.
yeah, football formations is. Okay, so my best work is, I would say, like, I'm going to divide this into 2. I had 3 candidates for this. And that is like I have 1 normal Sudoku, 1 pencil puzzle, basically, because in the later half I also set like around 10 pencil puzzles overall. And I'm going to give a very unique puzzle at the end, because I think that's also one of the most amazing ones. The first one that I'm going to give, which is I think a very amazing Sudoku, which is a 9x9 grid, is Liar Spiral. Is I think my best work when it comes to setting a normal Sudoku. By normal, I mean just utilizing a normal Sudoku grid that has like very good logic, very good flow, and very good aesthetics, and a good theme all at the same time. Like if you guys like the puzzle at the very bottom left is Liar Spiral, and basically it is a puzzle. It's not 2 truths and a lie, because the truth count isn't known, but basically every constraint has a liar. And I was extremely pleased that I was able to get this grid in a fully symmetric method, and even every single given clue, like even the quadruple digits, are following a theme. And yeah, I think this puzzle is very full with logic. Every single clue does exactly what I want it to do and doesn't yield anything more. And everything you find in one clue always affects something else. So it is instantly rewarding. And all of those qualities are stuff that I really appreciate in a Sudoku. And I think this puzzle is the one that I actually achieved that the best. For example, like, why is not Dynamic Duos my best work in this regard? Because Dynamic Duos has some aha moments, that there are a few aha moments throughout the puzzle. But once you get those aha moments, like the solve itself is actually pretty standard. So it is a very highlight moment puzzle, especially like when you realize some of the givens are there, why some of the lines are drawn like that. It is very satisfying. but it is not flowy. Liar Spiral is just constant flow, constant deductions throughout, and it is basically like that until the very last 8 digits, basically.
Right.
So that's why for Sudoku, which is already constrained very geometrically, I think Liar Spiral is one of my best work about that. When it comes to non-Sudoku, one has a lot more freedom because when you are not bound by boxes, when you are not bound by grid size, you have more room to play with, and then you can put a lot more constraints into the puzzle, or a lot more deductions in there. And this puzzle is actually one of my most recent ones, and that is my Liar Japanese Sums 5, which is a ciphered cave, and that is basically the puzzle that is most KNT inspired from mine. I have a few puzzles that are inspired by KNT. And yeah, this puzzle is really... I set 4 puzzles before this just to prepare people for solving this one, basically. This puzzle
This
is
intense.
directly... Yeah, it is. Yeah, Michael still didn't solve it. He started and then he gave up on it, I believe. And yeah, I think this puzzle is one of my pinnacle work when it comes to putting intricate logic one after another while still keeping the puzzle flow smooth. And that is achieved by the grid being larger. It is 144 cells, it's 12 by 12. And whenever you do a deduction, the next step either becomes clear or you get nudged in the right direction about what to think about. And then you get to shade a few more, and then you instantly know, when this is done, and this has to be the wrong side, and this is the right side, and that does this. And it's just a very flowy adventure that I think is very, very unique here.
Assuming you solve the previous 4.
Yeah, it is not the break-in is very sneaky. I like the break-in a lot. A few people had a very hard time spotting it. Because normally when you have puzzles like these, which is ciphered and cave and Japanese sounds, you usually start with having some free shading given, and then those shadings for some other shadings, and then you start to make some small shading-based deductions. This puzzle, until you realize one thing at the start, gives you nothing. Absolutely nothing. It is something very sneaky. If you try it out, you will see for yourself. So that is why I like this puzzle quite a bit. It is also... for some of my closest puzzling friends, they have said that this is also my best puzzle for them, which is also very understandable because this is the part of puzzle. This is the type of puzzle they like to solve a lot. And my third honorable mention is going to go to the Battleship puzzle, a game of Battleship. And that is because how unique it is and how I set the puzzle to be basically a 3.5 star difficulty puzzle for 3 hours. And I think anyone, I have received a lot of different feedback from people who have solved Battleship, but overall it still stands strong. So yeah, Mixed bifurcated the break-in so hard in Cypher K5. But yeah, this puzzle, you have nothing here. This is a very unique puzzle because this is a puzzle that I created, which is a logic puzzle, and the rules are basically 2 pages long.
Right.
And you have to read through a magazine puzzle, those,
right.
where you have the Einstein table puzzles, where they give you 16 different stuff, and then you have to do eliminations and fill the table because everyone has a unique drink, unique nationality, and something like that. And this has elements of that. And this is basically what I want to achieve because I haven't seen anything like this in any of LMD before, not in CTC either. I solved only one puzzle like this in the past in CTC community. And yeah, I think I did a very decent job at achieving what I wanted to have because anyone who has solved this agrees that it is not brutal at all. You just have to find the right place to look, and then it's always about finding the right connection. And all of the deductions itself, once you see them, are pretty easy to make. And after a while, it just Zeta had streamed this puzzle on stream. It took 4 hours, and once it was done, people were like, "Oh, it hasn't been really 4 hours," and that's exactly the feeling that I wanted to capture with this. That you get immersed in the idea, the story. It's a real game of Battleship, and once you solve it, you don't realize how fast the time flew. And basically, that's what I want to achieve. And I think I did a good job of that. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it clearly you've confirmed that you succeeded. Wisteria did ask a question about this specific puzzle. I'll just give you the short version of it. She said, I really enjoyed this. Are there any particular puzzles that inspired it? Are there any similar puzzles you would recommend? And you kind of answered that by saying no, but can you think of
No,
it?
it's not fun. There is one. Like,
Okay.
it is not like I didn't get inspired by any puzzle realistically. Although, like, that is not a lie. Like, that is a lie. What I did is there was a feature on CTC. I don't even remember who the puzzle is from. I didn't solve the puzzle. But what I saw is like it was Monopoly Sudoku. Like the title of the video was Monopoly Sudoku, and the thumbnail was basically a Sudoku grid layered onto a Monopoly grid. And I'm like, I'm a board gamer. I like playing board games a lot. I have a small collection at my house. And Monopoly is an absolute trash tier board game. It's heretic. And I was like, there should be better board games that I can set a Sudoku with. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, oh, there's a battleship genre. And I was very excited about it. And I went to LMD. I basically searched for battleship Sudoku. Like you can do advanced search on LMD. And I gave the battleships and I gave the Sudoku in. And I searched for them. There was like 15 puzzles in there. And then I was extremely disappointed that all of them were just using battleship as the pencil puzzle genre, where like there are some given puzzle types, like given ship types with some digits on them, and you have to figure out where they lie on the grid. And I was like, no, this is not Battleship. Battleship is real. You have 2 players. You have a fleet of 5 ships. You don't know where they are, and you have to find them based on shooting stuff. And I was like, okay, how can I do this? And this was around the time where KNT was doing Orpheus as well, I believe. Either he did right after this or right before this, but I was thinking of, if each person has 5 ships, because I knew a battleship grid was 10 by 10, the game, the board game, and I was like, what I can do is if I place every single ship in a region, I can get in a 10 by 10 grid, a 10 by 10 chaos construction with 10 regions. So I had the idea like that, and then I just built upon it. I was like, okay, how am I going to write rules for this? Like, there is no way I can write the rules that implement the bad gameplay elements. So I had the idea, and this is where the inspiration comes from, kinda. The puzzle that I recommend is, Gorkles has made a puzzle ages ago in Discord. It is still in the archive. It is called Tic-Tac-Toe Tournament. And it is basically a puzzle where there are 6 old school CTC people are divided into groups of 3. And it is the exact same style of puzzle where the Sudoku grid has 9 boxes, and for each box, the Tic-Tac-Toe Tournament newspaper article written after the tournament has information in it. And like that is the one puzzle I solved, which was like Battleship. That was the only one. And I really enjoyed it. It is definitely not as long as Battleship. It took me like 1.5 hours to solve his. And like I thought I can do something similar to that. And then I spent an entire week just thinking about how I want to do this like as smoothly as possible. So that is how this puzzle came to be in the end. Yeah, Cavalier, exactly, because like there's no way you can do standard rules for them. So I just wanted to write a small story like observation. Like I needed 2 players, and this was at the time where I had the group with KNT and TNC very active. So I was like, I asked them, like, I'm going to make a battleship puzzle. Is it okay if I use you 2 as the players in this? And they agreed. So I used both of them, and of course I let one of them deliberately lose. Obviously.
How did you choose the loser?
Yeah, it was easy. Like I knew the loser before I started doing the puzzle.
Oh my word. All right, this is a relevant question. What inspired you to set more non-Sudoku puzzles recently? That's Woofer's question, actually.
KNT. Like that is a 3-letter answer to that. Basically, the first time I met KNT is like I didn't meet him, but like I saw on LMD like KNT started setting puzzles on the start of April 2022. Yes, KNT has been setting puzzles for a year. Let that sink in, people, if you didn't know that. And I was like, he was setting lots of chaos construction stuff, and I really enjoyed chaos construction trend quite a bit. And what I have done is like I started solving his puzzles. And I really enjoyed them. And KNT is a very social person. So I don't know how we first talked, really. What I do know is the first message I have written about him is basically like he solved one of my harder puzzles in 17 minutes. Like he said in feedback, and I was like, how can someone solve this in 17 minutes? That this guy is a monster. Like we didn't know who he was at the time. And then yeah, KNT then like we started talking. Like I was solving his puzzles. He solved a few of mine. Then I started asking questions about them, sending in my like how I solved them, what I found good and such. And then KNT branched into doing some older German stuff. KNT met Polar, and then started talking a lot with Polar, and Polar converted him to solve all of the old German stuff. And then KNT discovered EBAG, which is Gabi on LMD. Then he discovered Japanese sums, set 15 Japanese sums puzzles in a row. And I was like, wait, these are very, very fun. And I started solving those. And then I was like, man, I should try my hand at these. These are really, really fun. And like the concept of them was pretty approachable to me. Joey, everything is a lore dump. The interview is a lore dump, isn't it? But yeah, like that is basically the biggest inspiration why I started setting more, because I was exploring a little bit too. Like I really thought that there is some truth to the fact that finding new ideas in Sudoku is really easier, like harder than finding stuff in pencil puzzles.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot more freedom and then you can play around a lot more. Like, and once that happened, like I first started setting some Philomenos. The Philomenocritic differences is one of my still favorite rule sets to date. Like I thought about the rule set and I was like, oh my god, I need to set this instantly. That's how much I love that. And then I set a non-number placement puzzle, which is a Nuritapa, that I was like, oh, I can combine Nurikabe and Tapa. These rule sets are actually pretty combinable. And what if I did a puzzle which was both? And I did my first shading puzzle. And yeah, it then turned out that you can do a lot more things with them. So I started setting more and more non-Sudoku. But I never wanted to lose my connection to Sudoku as well. So like if you go to my first page, you will see that there are lots of non-Sudoku, but you will also see that between, like, it's always like there are 2 Sudoku, 3 non-Sudoku, then 2 Sudoku again, 1 non-Sudoku, 1 Sudoku. Like there's always a change. Like I always try to keep myself more open-minded about when it comes to puzzle sets. So like the last 6 are 2 Sudoku, 2 non-Sudoku, 2 Sudoku. Like it goes like that. Nuritapa 2-1. I don't think the rule set itself is warranting enough for a second puzzle micro. Like you can do a change on the rule set, but I think like Nuritapa is one of those puzzles where it warrants a relatively easy puzzle to show the intriguing moments of the rule set, and then you just have to be done with it in like 20 minutes or something.
Do you set non-Sudoku in the same sort of way you would set a Sudoku, or is it a completely different process?
I wouldn't say it is completely different. There are definitely lots of similar elements in there. The main difference is, like, the more I start to set Sudoku, especially when I was setting a lot with things that I had the solver availability on, I really learned how to use the solver as a tool and not as the main part of the setting process. Like, I think I have come to a point where I can really utilize the solver's strengths while not being too disgruntled by its weaknesses about how the solve path may look a lot computer-like if you rely too much on it, but as more of a tool. But aside from that, like, I always set my puzzles, like all deductions I come up with myself. Like, I never really used any type of assistance to come up with them. I get inspired by other puzzles for sure, but like almost all the time, the first idea in a puzzle is always something that I found really intriguing. It might not be something new, but it is something that I would think that is not utilized enough, and I want to showcase it at some point. And then after that, the setting process more time goes like, okay, like I placed this break in, play around. Like, what can you do with it?
Yeah.
I try not to have too many rules at the same time. Like, but once I decide on 1 or 2 rules, I tend to stick by them, unless I'm setting ambiguity or liar puzzle stuff.
Right. And how on earth do you go about setting one of those giant cryptic ones? Like, how do you keep track of all that information?
The short answer is Pampa. Pampa is an amazing tool for that. But like, what I usually do, especially I started doing this for some of the latest puzzles. That like I actually have a notepad where I write notes in instead of actually placing clues. Because there are some puzzles, like Liar Japanese Sums 5 was like that, where I wanted to break an idea, but I didn't want to place it into the grid at the same time because I didn't know where it was going to be utilized best. So what I
Yeah.
did is I wrote in my notes, okay, for this break-in to work, I need to have these conditions fulfilled. And then I just started adding to the grid the things that would be startable after knowing those things. And then I
Okay.
started setting more and more. And then while setting those, I was like, oh, here I can now put one of those conditions in here that will also be important in the mid solve. And that is
Interesting.
how I try to do those cipher stuff usually.
That's super
I
interesting.
keep
Actually.
notes at the side before placing them into the grid, and then I decide which location of the grid this makes most sense to go into.
Cool. All right, we should probably answer what on earth is this football formations joke about?
I mean, I don't really know why it became a joke either. Like, I think it is overall Micro's overreaction, I would say. Like, Micro is the biggest cheerleader on that. Basically, what happened is, again, I did this ranking stream on all of my puzzles on stream. And that puzzle, like, when I ranked them, I ranked this the lowest one. And the reasoning for that was, basically, this puzzle has a break-in. I still like its break-in, by the way. The break-in is still neat, in my opinion. But after you find the break-in, there is nothing in it, basically. You just all of the arrows are begging for you to, okay, just finish the puzzle already.
Right.
That is what I think. And like there is a given 6 on an arrow, and this is also a meme thing for so many people when they look at the aesthetics of it. But that 6 is needed for the break-in, so I didn't find a better way to actually utilize that somehow, so I just put it in there. And yeah, I just rated it lowest. Like, I don't think it's a bad puzzle still. Like, it is still not a tragedy puzzle, at least in my eyes. Like, it is still okay. It's just among my own work, not up to my standards, really. Like, I don't know why it turned out to be too big of a deal, because people like to joke about it and I react to them, and when I react, people joke more about it, but because they don't see my reaction. And it just
Right.
went from there, I think.
Makes sense. That's usually how jokes get started, I would say.
Yeah.
All right. Math Pesto would ask, can you talk about the challenge behind the process of setting a handshake?
Oh, yeah. Believe it or not, yeah, that's actually football formations plays a role in the setting of
Oh.
handshake. And that
Extra
is
lore.
because, okay, yeah, now I'm going to, I sent this picture to the Mister as well. So I dug this screenshot up. So basically what was happening here is, this is a group chat of me, KNT, and TNC. And we were one day talking about like what are our styles and what are our reputations, and like Total Normal Cat was giving his verdict on about like what is KNT's style, what is my style, and then TNC was like, okay, KNT's style is well known, like he's a chaos construction guy, he does lots of Japanese thumbs. Yeah, of course the group name is Henry Pie James Fan Club. Henry is awesome. We were really addicted to his rule checks, like he was the rule like the rule inspector of the entire LMD. And then, like like Totally Normal Cat didn't solve too many of my puzzles, and so when he checked my LMD, he's like I cannot say too much about Niverio. Niverio has everything, and I said, yeah, I actually do, because like if you guys check my page, I basically have at least one puzzle with every constraint out there, like with the most well-known ones at least, and yeah, like his note, including weird rule set, standard stuff, a puzzle which requires a cheat sheet, that is Battleship, some usual chaos construction and stuff. And then I said, I really need to set a proper enjoyable arrow, because my only one, which is football formation, like the break-in is nice, but the rate is so lame. And then he said, right then, I have a challenge for you then. Try to set an arrow which contains no min-max logic. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a good challenge. That's very cool. Let's do it. So what I did for the next week, I opened up puzzles. I clicked on arrow. I disabled everything else, and I just started putting some arrows into the grid. And I played around and around, and I was like, at one point I was, like, how do you avoid no min-max logic? Because almost every single arrow puzzle I saw that up until that point, it, like, either had additional constraints with even and odd circles, which forced parity stuff, and some of those are extremely difficult things. And
Right.
either you had lots of min-maxing, where you had 3 cell rows, 2 cell rows, or you could combine them. Like, if you have 3 2 cell rows at the same time, they are still constrained. And Polynomial banned all of those. And I was like, okay, then I need to find something geometric then. And then this puzzle, first I found the first 3 columns. At the time, it was the last 3 columns, by the way, when I said it. This is a morph version of it. Basically, what I did was I just morphed the entire thing symmetric. Everything on the arrows were rotated from left to right originally, and I then just morphed it because I thought this looked better than the right side version. And then, yeah, I started finding the break-in. And this puzzle is also one of my favorite stuff out there, and I think one of the reasons it got very amazing feedback on LMD and CTC as well is, like, it uses geometry all through, basically, for the first entire point until the main break-in. There is no arithmetic involved realistically. Like, you get some pencil marks, you restrict some cells to certain values because of the geometry interactions, but the main disambiguation happens after using the first break-in idea at another location of the puzzle. And it was also shown in the intro video where Simon figured out the main portion of how the entire thing gets resolved. And yeah, it was really a very enjoyable experience. And this puzzle is really, realistically, the first time I really spent forever on even placing the ending arrow. Like, because this was a totally normal cat challenge, and the first one of mine was so bad in my own eyes, that I said, okay, this puzzle is going to be so good that even the ending is going to feel satisfactory. Like, this puzzle, I didn't have too many versions of it, so to say, but it had a very long time, like of 2 entire days of setting, where I put some stuff into the grid, and then the next day I started with just the first 3 columns again.
Right.
And then when I realized that I could reuse what I did in the first 3 columns somewhere else in the puzzle, it was an amazing moment. And that's, I think, also what made most solvers feel pretty clever about it, is what I'm thinking, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hey, in the end, I didn't end up using any 3 cell arrows. Lots of 1 cell arrows, because those are required for the geometry to happen. And in the end, this is still, like, my most watched CTC feature. It is also, like, for a 4-star puzzle, the most solves I've ever had. This has 80 plus solves on LMD right now, which is the only puzzle of mine in LMD that is 4-star or higher. This puzzle was named by Joey, by the way. The handshake. I was talking to Joey about how I was setting an arrow puzzle, and I sent her the grid, and I like, oh, those 2, the first 2 arrows you used in the grid, they look like handshaking, and yeah, that stuck.
Which ones look like handshaking?
Yeah, the ones in the column 1, the column row 6 and row 7.
Oh, okay.
The ones that are rows.
Yeah.
The ones that are crossed. Yeah, like.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have any ideas. Joey gave me an idea, and I just didn't question it, really. Like, I was very desperate to publish it so that TNC could approve it, basically.
Yeah, it looks.
The name was my least of my worries.
Yeah, it looks more like a handshake than the other one looked like football formations. So.
Okay, the football formations one is actually somewhat clever. Okay, like, it has 10 arrows, which is representing the 10 players, and it looked like the longer arrows of those look like the quarterbacks flanking to the sides for it had a notion, okay?
Yeah. Related, I guess, MicroStudy had asked a question, and he had quite a lead in. For inexperienced setters like me, one could only imagine how long it would take to set something like your brilliant puzzles, especially the harder ones, all of your creations seem to focus on making very precise but also rewarding deductions. My two questions are, any plans on improving your titles?
Yeah, see, he does an opening, which can lead to so many things, and then he goes like, "Oh, how do you improve your titles?" I won't. Like, I'm bad. I'm bad at naming things. I'm sorry. Like, yeah, I did read that question, Michael. Obviously, uh, but yeah, like I don't know what I can say really. Like sometimes I look at the grid and something comes up to my mind. Most of the time it doesn't. So yeah, like that, like I at least I would want, like if people are going to remember my puzzles by having one bad quality, I'm really pleased that they are remembered by, okay, they have generic names. Like, I can live with that.
Yeah. Let's not get into how Ubisoft title his puzzles. His other question, because he did say two questions, so we'll just do both of them right now. Michael Study asked, is there any advice you can offer to new setters who are looking to make 5-star bangers such as yours?
Okay, that's actually a good question that I was really happy reading about, because like I think I can say something on this subject that it is not said too much. Like you have been doing this spotlight for a very long time now. We have like around 25 guests so far, and there are also around 20 setter videos on CTC. And like at the very core of it, most of the people say very similar things, and I'm no different, because there is a reason why like norms exist. There's a reason why the common beauty and common quality traits are the same for most people. So there's not much too different to say. But what I can say is, especially like because I also saw a question somewhat related to this about like keeping difficulty throughout the puzzle consistent as well, is when you are going into a puzzle, it is really important to know the potential of your constraints that you are setting with. And you need to have a plan. Like if you really want your puzzle to be consistent throughout, you have to know what type of deductions your constraints allow. Like what I mean by that, some constraints are more powerful than others. I'm going to give examples from normal Sudoku variants right now, because like those are the what most people are capable of and know about. And for example, between line is a good example. Like network as a puzzle at the end, which is one of my latest puzzles, a good example for this, is that between lines are weak constraint overall. Between lines at the when you have nothing else in the grid, there's only one idea of between line, and that is you cannot have 1 or 9 on a line. And that is the only thing that you can get. Basically. Compare that to something like a rampand. Like compare that to a rampand. Rampand, you know every single digit is different. Every single digit needs to form a contiguous order. You can create lots of geometric things with that because you know digits cannot repeat. And you know that some cells that see the entire rampand are pretty constrained, because if you put a middling digit there, like if you put a 5 that sees an entire four-cell rampand, you know the entire line is going to get extremely forced. Yeah. And these types of things is what makes rampand powerful. Because then you will know that every single new thing you are going to add to the grid, you can kind of imagine how much of an extra tension it will add to the grid. And every single puzzle, especially when you are talking about Sudoku, there is a certain amount of tension that every grid can handle. And once you break that tension to the limit, the puzzle just collapses. And there's nothing more you can do about it, because even if you add new clues in, everything will be resolved by just Sudoku. Right. Or at some points, like people can spot some new things like uniqueness selections, for example. But aside from that, yeah, you need to know how powerful your constraints are and how much of a powerful break-in you want to create. And that is very important, because I was also not too good at this myself. And one of the best examples for that is Interlocked, which is a Thermo Whisper puzzle, and it also has anti-king. And I created a very loud break-in that I really loved. And creating the break-in took me like 1.5 hours. And then what I did is I put the break-in onto the grid. I went to F puzzles and I clicked on solution count. And this is Interlocked, that Mimesis is showing on the grid. And every single, like the 4 thermals and the 2 long German whisper lines are the break-in. The 2-cell green line, ignore that. The rest is breaking. With just those constraints, the puzzle has 7 solutions. 7. I spent twice as much disambiguating that ending 7 solutions than coming up with the entire puzzle idea. Because I wanted to have at least some of a decent ending so that I don't have a repeat of football formations, basically.
Right.
And that is for me, like, that is, for example, a good example of me not understanding how powerful my constraints that I was adding were. Like, what I was doing is, I already had a global constraint in anti-king, which is already powerful. I had the break-in used 4 fixed length thermometers that solve each other by anti-king, so that's already powerful. I'm using straight German whisper lines that are already powerful, and just those 4 ideas put so much tension into the grid that you have no more room to play around with it anymore. And this is something that you have to be careful about, depending on what your goal for your puzzle creation is. Like, if you are going to create something that needs to be consistent, you either are going to have strong constraints and you are going to place a few very strong deductions that will be very rewarding to find, or maybe you are going to use a little bit more weaker constraints and you are going to extract more out of the interactions that when 2 weak constraints come together, the result doesn't have to be that weak. And that is what I have done in network. That the network is a great example for that because of this reason, is quadruples in itself is also not a very strong constraint, especially when you are just giving 1 digit on a circle. Because then what you are doing is basically, okay, this digit goes into one of these 4 cells, and you have no other idea about how those cells are constrained. And if you haven't solved this puzzle, like, it's going to be kind of a spoiler, but like, when you combine the 2 here, the break-in for this puzzle, when I realized what I could do with this, it was a mind-blowing moment for me, because I could have never imagined how 2 weak constraints, when they came together, could create such an impact. And most of the action takes place in the first 3 rows for the opening, and the only reason that works is the unique geometry of between lines, and that is usually not an important thing at all. And the other secret of between lines is that it's just in the rules, it's not even a secret, that the circled cell cannot appear on its own line. And then what I did with this puzzle is I set up the geometry in such a way that when a circle, like, it's going to see a quadruple cell, some of those cells will be seen by Sudoku. And if you draw the line in such a way that that circle also, the line takes the rest of those quadruple cells, you cannot place that circle in the quad anymore. Like, you cannot place the digits in the quad in the circle anymore. And that was the igniting idea behind network. And when I figured that out, it was really pleasant. And the rest of the solve, I was also pretty happy about, because these are 2 weak constraints. So after I did the initial logic, I still had a lot more potential and tension I could add in the future, because these were very weak on their own. And even when I just didn't have the final constraints in, I still had 1,000 solutions on that. And that is something that you need to be aware of when you are first setting with the goal of the puzzle. The potential of the constraints.
Definitely, yeah. And yeah, especially for harder puzzles or more complex puzzles, for sure. Which is the question. Slightly less serious question. Belsita asks, why a branching rampand? Why didn't you listen to KNT?
Okay, first of all, KNT did, like, even if KNT mentioned that rampand, I forgot about him mentioning it, okay? And like, this is a puzzle that is Liar Japanese Sums 3. This is where the branching rampand is. And basically, during this time, I was in Turkey. Like, I was visiting my family. And I wasn't in my normal setting setup. I was setting this puzzle on a very small laptop, on a very uncomfortable table. The blue line is what Isabella is talking about. And like, I placed that to rampand initially I had a very lovely X-Wing on ones, and I wanted to disambiguate that with a rampand, because the rampand goes through both sides of the X-Wing, and on one side you cannot place the digit anymore, because if you place the digit, the other digits of the X-Wing will also be on the rampand. And that was the idea for placing that rampand initially. But because I was setting in I was in the setting mode, I didn't realize that I could actually make this rampand non-branching, because I initially drew the rampand. The initial rampand required for the deduction was only 3 cells long.
Right.
But then I realized if I just leave it 3 cells, it bypasses some of the earlier logic. So I just lengthened it to the sides. And at the end, I didn't realize I could have actually drawn it in a different manner. That's why, like, I started from the bottom drawing this rampand, and I said, oh, 4 cells is still not enough. Oh, I can take this cell to the top right. Oh, but for that number to appear, I need to get this bridge number from the left. And that's how that happened. And yeah, I didn't even think for 1 second that I could draw it in any other way. And yeah, that is the other meme now.
That
Yeah,
is a
I'm
pretty
going to
good
give you the real answer. That is the real answer right there.
one.
Because of like that rampand didn't start as a 6-cell rampand. It started as a 4-cell rampand. 3-cell actually. The 4-cell that got added later.
It really is the merger of 2 Renbands rather than
Yeah.
Gruffles asked FMK Little Killer full rank fortress, and I at first didn't know what this meant, but then I realized it meant have sexual relations with one of them, marry one of them, and kill one of them. Which is confusing because he put F for sexual relations, which I'm not too sure what that would stand for.
Yeah, actually, like for me, like among these 3, I would actually marry Fortress. And the main reason for that is at least Fortress's effects can be contained. It is a local constraint.
Right.
Like you can use it as a local constraint. So if you get forced to use Fortress, you can still come up with something like it will still be ugly to the eye, but it will still be a localized deduction that you can put something about them. The other 2, Little Killer
wife,
and full rank. Yeah, ideal wife, obviously.
Yeah.
And then I would kill Little Killer. Little Killer can absolutely go to hell. Because whenever you place a single Little Killer, it affects so many cells. You can repeat digits. It gives you nothing. And every single deduction that comes with Little Killer is mainly, at the break-ins at least, it just affects so many cells. You have to do something global with it. Like, you cannot just do, like, local Little Killer deductions. It just doesn't exist. Like, it just doesn't. So, like, that is why I would definitely murder Little Killer. And the full rank is a more middly thing. Like, full rank, I do not mind it too much. Like, I don't like it, but, like, you can still do some cool deductions with that. So, no, Mixo, you are delusional. Like, anyone who claims Little Killer is beautiful is, no.
You wouldn't want full rank to meet your parents, but, you know, it's all right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. It really depends on how Little Killer is used. It has, I think Jimmy, that's right. It has potential, but if it's used for min-max, it's just so sad.
Okay, I should give some context. The main reason I do not like Little Killer is, at one point, I sold the entirety of Gurkha's catalog, I sold the entirety of Total Normal Cat catalog, and I sold Gurkha's Little Killers. All 3 of those setters have insanely difficult set requiring multi-step Little Killer puzzles out there. It left a trauma. Is the shortest way to say that.
You already attempted to kill Little Killer, I'm guessing. This is
no. Okay. I have to say this, Playmaker. If Little Killer didn't allow repeated digits, I would love Little Killer. The only reason Little Killer is so bad, but Killer is S tier, and so is Japanese sums, is you cannot repeat digits on them. And that allows for good eliminations, you can do geometry with them. Little Killer with the allowed repeat digits sucks. Okay? There. Rant over.
So just make one that doesn't repeat digits. Easy.
Yeah, maybe. Oh my god, micro, I just showed.
Jovial asks something sort of related to this because you brought up solving Little Killers that you didn't enjoy so much from some awesome art constructors. She asks, oftentimes I'll see you solve from a constructor, they when they've written puzzles you've disliked in the past. Why is this? Which I find hilarious in the wording. Jovial's like, why would you ever solve something from someone who betrayed
Yeah.
you?
I actually love this question because when I thought about it, this is probably going to be like the most controversial take I'm giving throughout this interview. And what I realized is, like, normally in life, we always say like trust takes years to build and it takes a moment to destroy, right? Like that is how most of the in like people relations work. For me, when it comes to puzzles, I find it a little bit more differently. I think I find the opposite in puzzles. Because what I tend to do is, like, if I see an amazing puzzle from a setter, like, for me, that already shows that they have the potential, the willingness, and the capability of actually setting amazing puzzles. And sometimes mishaps happen. Like, none of our puzzles are going to cater to everyone, right? And sometimes you need to accept that the setter that is you are solving puzzles from is not going to set every single puzzle based on your liking. Like they have their own preferences. Maybe they are setting it for a different audience, and you will never be part of the same audience every single time. So it is completely okay that you are not going to enjoy all of their puzzles. That doesn't mean like sometimes you can just say, okay, like I know I'm not going to enjoy this. I just not going to solve it. That is a valid approach. But still, I like to keep some of my 100%, so to say, which are my solve ratios on some people on LMD, intact. And because those people that I have seen some amazing puzzles from, and I know that when they want to, and when they actually feel like it, they can set insane, mind-blowing, high-quality puzzles out there. And once I see that happen, like I'm still willing to give their next puzzles a try. Like what can happen is maybe they didn't think their first puzzles were too good. Maybe they just got lucky in their own mind. I cannot know that. But for me, for my own experience, it shows that I have solved this puzzle from this person before and I loved it. If I do not solve the rest of them, I might miss another moment like that.
Right.
And I think that type of trust still stays for a long time. And like there are some setters that never betrayed my trust for many, many years. Like Gurkles comes to mind, KNT comes to mind. Like some of the puzzles made me cry, but I still endured through them because they might not have been that way. Maybe I would have loved them, you know? Like you cannot know before you start. So that is what I usually tend to do. And of course you can say that for like it doesn't have to be setter specific. You can go and say, oh, but like you know there are 10,000 more puzzles on LMD. Like the fact that you may love them goes for them too. But like those setters, those people I haven't seen them from. Like I need to give them a chance at some point, but nobody has that much time. So like if I could, I would solve every puzzle on LMD and like find all the setters that are amazing. But sadly, real life doesn't allow that.
Yeah, that is sad. MathPest would ask, what do you consider to be your reputations as a solver, setter, and streamer? Which I think is a really interesting question.
Oh yeah, I actually like. This is a very hard question for me to answer because like it is never possible for your own self to know the answer to this truthfully, right? Because most of the time when people talk to you, like there's always a type of social norm that goes on, right? Like there's a certain amount of respect and kindness and politeness that always goes through. So like someone who is telling to my face, oh, like you're a very lovely person, can be saying like, oh, this guy's well sucks behind my back. Like that is always a possible, right? But like overall, from what I've gathered, is like I think my reputation is the strongest as a solver. Like I've seen in countless times in CTC, in Puzzle Plaza, on Data Math Channel, like in many places, like people talk about how good of a solver I am. Like I do not disagree with it. Like it's not something too subjective at some point. Like it is true that I solve puzzles faster than so many other people do. And I'm not upset that this reputation exists. It's a very good thing, actually, in my opinion, that people know that I'm a good solver, and they also sometimes approach me for testing puzzles, which I've also done quite a lot. And I really enjoy that people respect me with their work to actually come get it tested by me. I really consider it a big honor. When it comes to my setting reputation, it actually doesn't exist too much from what I have seen. Like the people who are close to me, like tell me that I'm a real decent setter. But like when it comes to like more outside ideas, I do not think like I have that much of a reputation a from a casual person, so to say. Like when we are talking about great CTC setters, like Fictional, Odd One, The Waitering, Clover, Joey, like KNT is then there, Jasper, all of these people, like there are 100 names. Like I don't really get my name heard there too much. And then one of the reasons for that is because I do not really have a style, so to say, because I set everything. Like I always try to do different things. And that is also preventing people from like knowing exactly what I do. Because nobody knows what I'm going to set next, right? Like if you look at my puzzles that comes after each other, like it's all over the place. And like there are not too many people out there that like that. I don't think like whenever you talk about someone, like when you give a name in CTC, you can usually tell what their strengths are. Like people like Joey and Shine are known for classics. Clover is most well known for killer and like 4x4s, like the bit specs and such. And like you can say that for so many people. Like KNT is known for chaos construction early, Japanese sounds late. Like Kodak and Zetamat and Tolkien, all of these people are known as very elegant, very in Sudoku setters. But like you do not know those people as like, oh, these people also do lots of pasta puzzles and such. And I am kind of different in that regard from what I know, at least. Like I don't know what people will think about it, but that is what I assume is what leads me to not having too much of a reputation as a unique setter, as someone who has his own identity, so to say.
The branding's just off.
Yeah, like I don't know if in CTC, like I will be honest, like I was kind of upset that I didn't have anything nominated for the CTC books, even though I have like 9 features now, and I think some of those puzzles are amazing. Like Handshake is there, Liar Spiral is there, and like they didn't choose any of mine. I wasn't even contacted once by them or anything pack related. But like it's not something that I'm going to like lose sleep on, right? Like it's just something that happens. One day maybe they will, is how I think about that. Like I'm reading some of the people what they're saying in chat, and like that really makes me happy. But again, like you guys are usually like the people who I know well, you know me well. Like these are people who also come to my streams quite often and know how I set and solve things. So like for people like you, like this is great to read, but like I don't know if you were to ask someone from CTC Discord, like what do you know about Niverio, right? Then you don't get too much. And for the final part, the streamer reputation, like I think the biggest reputation I have about streaming puzzles, like a puzzle streamer, is like I do the things that other streamers don't. Like there are so many streamers out there right now, like Zeta and Ranks are the most two popular. Then there's Bramster, there's you when you do solving, which is pretty rare these days, which I miss.
Pretty much never.
But yeah, like there are some other people that are doing YouTube videos, like Crusader, and like none of those people solve the puzzle that I do. Like nobody except from me solves like a Jasper 5-star on stream, or like just open. Oh, there's a first 5-star puzzle. Let's go try it right now. And like that is the one thing that distinguishes me a little bit as a streamer. And I also, again, like I was kind of a unique person when I did these packs live on stream, like the Sense of Place from Clover, Caterpillar, and as Datamat started copying me and did those himself too. So that is not as unique anymore. But yeah, I think that those two are the most like things that I know that people tell about me, and yeah, about how fast I am on streaming as well. And like people say that I read chat quite well, which I'm really happy about, because I try to do that quite a good time. Like it is one of the most important aspects for me that I do not miss messages, because I know, like I will say this, like Zeta don't hate me, but like when I'm watching Zetamat and he doesn't, like when he's solving a hard puzzle, I'm actually trying to help, and I spot something and I write an explanation, and then he doesn't leave for 10 minutes, and then Garyon writes it 5 minutes later, and then he spots his. It is discouraging, you know. So I try not to do that.
I find with Zeta Math you have to phrase it in the right way, or he just completely ignores it.
Yeah.
And Garyon has the phrasing just on point every time. So
yeah, exactly. Like this is not anything against Zeta. This is not anything against Garyon. No. But yeah, this is like something that happens sometimes. Like And yeah, Zeta, you can read chat while streaming. And yeah, I'm not a good phraser of answers usually, so that's also definitely fair.
I don't interact with the chat very much during my streams, but that's because I don't want to interrupt the speaker, obviously. But I do read every single one of the messages that are there. Sometimes I even look over to the side to catch a message even before it comes up on the stream. So let's go through the rapid fire questions while we have some time here. I think you know how these work, one or the other.
Yeah, after watching. Yep.
Okay, local or global deductions?
Local, all the way.
Coloring or good living?
Coloring.
Simple or complex?
This one is hard. Complex.
Geometry or arithmetic?
Geometry.
Penpa or F puzzles?
Pampa, all the way.
Sudoku or pencil puzzles?
Pencil puzzles.
TNC or KNT?
KNT. If TNC hadn't gone away for us all this time, like maybe it would be TNC, but no, KNT. Like...
Chaos or order?
Chaos.
Calculator or abacus?
Calculator.
Cages
I
or
find it so weird when people say abacus. Like, what? Like, calculator can do like so much more than abacus. Like, how is this a question? What was the next one?
Cages or lines?
Lines. Like, come on. Dynamic is my favorite puzzle. Obviously, it's going to be lines.
Arrows or dots?
Dots.
To disambiguate a puzzle, a given or a clue?
I have actually a unique thing on this. If it's a harder puzzle, a clue. If it's a relatively easy one where I would value aesthetics more, a given.
Interesting. Outside or inside clues?
This one is really hard because, like, I want to say inside, but so many people call me like, you are so good with placing outside clues into puzzles, so it is really hard to get this. But I'm going to go with inside.
Okay. Good or evil?
Good.
Evil?
I almost said evil. I almost said E.
Lawful or chaotic?
Chaotic.
Okay.
Micro, you sound nothing.
Crockle said an interesting question. His name appears kind of in chat there. It's quite a lead-in. Back when Turgenis and I released Revelations Pack, we figured that death would be the final boss because of that kind of ambiguity hadn't really been done much before. Now, however, ambiguity is part of the puzzle is more commonplace. I know ambiguity of constraints is one of your favorite things to play with. And here comes the question. What are your thoughts on how the puzzling community's familiarity and exploration with ambiguity have evolved?
I kind of touched on this earlier. Like, I'm really glad that a lot more ambiguity puzzles have been set throughout the last 2 years. Like, these days, it's also not too often. Like, these days, people are more going into hybrids instead of doing ambiguity stuff, which kind of saddens me. But, like, I can definitely understand why, because so many of the most powerful combos have been kind of explored, especially like rampand Jurgen Whispers ambiguity has been done like 5-6 times now, with all very unique approaches too, which I really like. I like ambiguity quite a bit, and I'm also going to touch onto another subject with this, with ambiguity. I think it is also that people are really close-minded when it comes to some certain constraints, and I'm going to touch on the between cells constraints, and that is like the X's, the V's, the white crop key, and black crop key. What I see most people use these for is there are two main use cases that I see. The first is disambiguation, that they use usually for the ending, where they find that where they think, okay, this is like the easiest way to disambiguate this that doesn't clutter the grid. And the second one is creating coloring puzzles. Like if you do lots of black dots or lots of X's, you can color the pairings, and then you get deductions out of that, which are both completely fine ways, but they have been done 100 times. And I have, throughout the years, while setting ambiguity puzzles, I have tried to delve a lot deeper than those things to actually utilize these constraints better. And I really think there's a lot more untapped potential by using these constraints and not knowing where they are, but they exist. I have set like 4 different puzzles that utilize those between cell ambiguity so far. Like I have done the dynamic dots was the first one. Then I did numbered walls, which is a numbered rooms but for indexing clues. Then I did candy shop, which is again for 4-way ambiguity puzzle, and I also did implication of parity, where also these dots were not known, and then you had to realize the parity aspects of these constraints to figure out deductions in them. And right now, my puzzle with Gurkhas is the 5th one in this series, where where I found another way of like how to make it ambiguous where these clues lie, and they're also ciphered, so you have to realize what goes where and such. And those are really like I think those have a lot good potential that way to be explored realistically. So I'm glad that people have done lots of line ambiguity so far. Like line ambiguity puzzles are tons out there. But yeah, the inside clues of like the between cell clue ambiguity has not been explored too much. I think like I'm the only person who set them. Like I have never seen anybody else set something like that actually. And yeah, outside clue ambiguity is also coming there. I have seen a few which were really, really decent. So yeah, I would be happier if people set more ambiguity stuff. And I can definitely give some insights on how to do those too.
Right.
I really have lots of it now. Like I know the number 4 inside out now because 4 is the magic number for connecting to everything.
Right, for the between ones.
Yeah, it connects to everything except 7 and 9, like in different ways, which is hilarious. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, 7 and 9 is definitely those schools are the best. Wait, is that no? That is 7 and 14. Yeah, I think that's 7 and 14.
How do you feel you are at writing the rules to your own puzzles?
Bad. Like, I am a lot better at creating links than writing rules. Like, it is often
links.
that, like, what I mean by that is, like, people like Canty or like many other people, when they first create links, like, they do not create good links. Like, either the answer check is broken or, like, there's a misplaced clue or something. And like when people test them, they're like, "Oh, it says answer check enabled, but I couldn't trigger it. What's wrong?" And then they're like, "Oh, I typoed." And I tend to like double check, triple check that all the time. But when it comes to rule writing, like I write rules, I think it's clear, but then like I get questions, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I should have actually clarified this." And it happens lots of times. So, so I'm not going to say like I'm definitely not Henry level. Like Henry is like 10 levels above me when it comes to that the rule clarity aspect of things. But I will say one thing related to this is like I really try really hard to not give a technicality part of the rules that you need to realize. Like I do not like deductions that you find by exploiting the rule set. Like you have to realize something literally from the rule set. It happened literally today. I spent a total of 5 hours on Data's newest because there was the rules interaction happening that did something. It changed one cell, and that one cell is so vital to the puzzle. It was absolutely crazy. I don't like when that happens. So, like when I write rules or guidelines, or overall when I try to write my rules or wordings, I really try not to make it harder to understand than usual, or do not hide hidden meanings inside of them. Like one of the best examples is Battleship again. I spent an entire day thinking about how I want to format the Battleship rule page because I already knew it was allowed to take in for the solver, and I was like, okay, I know this is an overwhelming project. If I want people to solve this, I need to present the rules in as user friendly as possible, so to say.
Right.
And like if there was some comments on the under the puzzle as well, praising that aspect of the puzzle, like Philito said, like I'm really impressed by the genuine care for the solver that they are not bothered by more things than necessary, which I really appreciated because I spent literal hours on thinking about that. So yeah, it is good when that type of thing gets noticed.
Yeah, definitely that's a great thing to bring up is to care about the solver when you're writing the rules. You don't want to bother them. Speaking of bothering people with stuff, what's your puzzling pet peeve? Is there something that other people do that you really hate, or something that annoys you when you're setting or solving?
Ah, I had thought of something for this, and I forgot. Ooh. Oh, yeah, actually, okay, I remember this. Um, so I know I said something kind of opposite to this at the start, but what I want to say about this is when people say, like, say no to the solver, basically, when people say that, I kind of get annoyed in the sense that I don't agree with that at all. And that is because the solver is a very, very powerful tool. And you just need to know how to use it well. And that is like, I can give a very recent example, which is in network. That happened in network is like you need to utilize the solver's strengths and know what you should and should not be doing with it. And the example for that is like, I don't know if you have it available, but if you can open the network grid, that puzzle has a deduction in it that I didn't spot myself, but the solver spotted. Like, what I was doing is I was using the true candidates feature. Like I did set one part of the puzzle, and then I opened true candidates, and then I was like, oh wait, this cell doesn't have this number in it, and it was a completely unrestricted seeming cell. And then what I didn't use solve path. Like what most people would do at that point is check with the solver, and then see what the solver does to eliminate that. That you should not be doing. That is really, really bad, I would say. Like that is definitely the part that I agree with other setters that using the solver is a bad idea. But instead, what I did is I tried to figure out for myself what was wrong with that cell being that number. And it took me a while, but then I understood why. And I was like, okay, I said to myself, like, you should know if that thing the solver sees is visible by other solvers. And what I concluded that is, okay, I cannot expect anyone to notice this at all.
Right.
Because there's no incentive to eliminate that number from that cell. But what I did is I set the next 3 clues into the puzzle just to make that deduction like searchable. Like
Right.
I gave the solvers a reason to investigate. Oh wow, like why is this clue here? And like most of the people know about this by now. Like it is the 7 and the 3 clues. Like they are placed at a very random location, right?
Right.
And those 7s and 3s are there because one cell doesn't have a 7. That is what the solver solved, and the symmetric cell didn't have a 3 in it. And the 3 is not even needed for the puzzle, by the way. The 3 is just there to enforce the telegraphing even further. And the between lines in row 4 are also just there to make the solver realize, like, oh, okay, there's something going on here. Like, why is this clue here? And then the question is, oh, if that cell isn't 7, something happens. Then why isn't that cell 7? Like, that is the retroactive thinking that you as the setter, if you are going to use something the solver solve and not yourself initially, you have to craft the visualization for the solvers of that yourself by adding additional clues to that. And that's what I did with this puzzle. And that is one of the reasons why this puzzle solves very nicely and fluently, because I gave lots of thought into making that thing the solver solve into a beautiful deduction. And making that beautiful and not impossible to find comes by you exploring how to utilize the set conclusions. Like you have to work your way backwards there. And this is a good example of that.
You're not done by just seeing that the solver had eliminated the option. You need to do more work to make it so that that's actually useful for the solver or the human solver and seeable and spottable. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're almost at the 2-hour mark. Is there any what's a question you want to be asked, and what's your answer to it? There we go. We get that question, a very important one.
No, I think I said pretty much all of the things that I really wanted to say. I think I'm the one thing that I would probably say is if people were to ask like, what is your best break-in? Because I always talk about like, oh, all of my puzzles have a break-in. And like, if people were to ask like, what is your best break-in in terms of telegraphing, which is not something obvious, but like it is very clear that you need to analyze it, and that would be like the puzzle from Wings of Pentagon. That also had like the opening idea is a classic trick. It's used the classic technique that you normally wouldn't ever look for in a killer puzzle at all. But the entire puzzle is built in such a way that everyone instantly sees that the opening, like because that is pretty well made. That is the place that you need to look at, and like I'm really proud of that one. Like that would be the one thing that I would really touch on. Like when it comes to break-ins, like that is the one break-in I would suggest that is like chef's kiss for me. That I was really happy about when I made it work.
I agree. That break-in is very nice. And very well telegraphed for what it is. Yeah. All right. Well, to echo David Ratner there, wonderful insight and very detailed and coherent answers to everything today, Niverio. Thank you so much. Had a great time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for everyone recommending me, voting for me, so that I could actually be here. I'm grateful to all of you. Yeah, thank you all, and thank you for having me.
Thanks to everyone in the chat for providing some lovely commentary. I definitely enjoyed the chat this time around. Some good comments. I was trying not to react, but I was laughing on the inside. And yeah, why don't you let us know who's up next?
Yeah, that's actually I'm glad that I brought up a killer puzzle as my final puzzle that was brought up to the stream, because the next setter has done lots of computer work on setting lots of amazing killer puzzles, and the next setter is going to be Philip Newman. So I'm really looking forward to listening to Philip explain stuff about classic Sudoku, some normal standard variant, setting for gas, like everything. That's going to be amazing for sure.
Definitely. I mean, just White Room alone is reason enough to be super excited to hear Philip's thoughts.
White Room is like, when I think of one normal standard Sudoku, White Room comes to my mind. It's just absolutely incredible.
Top shelf. Yeah. Anyways, can't wait to have that conversation with. Hopefully, I can do a Nerd Snipe on stream. We'll see. Can't wait to do that. I'll throw up the stream details later this week. It'll be next weekend, so a little bit over a week, but yeah, that should be fun. Thank you again, Niverio, and everyone have a great day.
Yeah, thank you, and have a great evening, night, morning, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.